guys remember my storage word. Came out last week, right? Well, I wanted to talk to you about something that's changed along my journey with stuff that I think might be helpful if you're decluttering along with me. Last week, I told you about how I had dealt with storage on a large scale, but this week, I wanted to talk about more of a micro scale, like in-house, how we use storage kind of thing. Not just the excess, get it off site, shove it in a self-storage place or a barn garage or whatever. Anyway, these days, when I look at a storage space that isn't working well, those places where I'm wanting to declutter this or I'm wanting to change what's going on there. Obviously, my first step is to declutter, but ideally, after decluttering, I can see where we might benefit from some sort of organization if we need any. But do remember that I'm like 16 years into this process, and any organization that's here at this point, most of it was not really consciously made decisions about how I was going to store stuff. Well, unless I've kind of gone through it on this pass. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so first I declutter. And then I look at the organization. And I've already made multiple passes. So theoretically, we want everything that's here. But if I'm looking at an area that already has storage, chances are those storage containers are going to go away. Because, well, they aren't working. And they weren't, intentionally chosen for a space, typically. They were whatever I had on hand that I thought might work. And then I'm looking at why isn't it working? And most of the time, these answers come down to a couple of things and things that I've learned about my family. Now, Sunday, your Grandma Margie was a very wise woman with her know thyself, know thy man, and know thy audience saying, I might not have a man, but knowing how both my kids and I interact with a space has been so helpful. So a few questions that I have kind of asked along the way. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't know exactly who these all came from. I think they've been probably a combination, but you're looking at Dana K. White, Cass from Clutterbug, Dawn from The Minimal Mom, Erica Lucas, Nourishing Minimalism, or one of a gazillion smaller channels. Things that I've sort of thought about in terms of my family. Do you take time to put something away when you're done with it, or do you take time to find it when you need it? And we are definitely take time to find it when we need it, people. A great big thank you to Sunday Dawn over at The Helpful Home for creating Tiny Tidy Tuesday. Make sure to check out her channel and this week's playlist down below. And then, does everyone using the area do the same thing? And then, do you remember it is there if you can't see it? And y'all, I am serious about this one. There are people that will forget to brush their teeth if their toothbrush is hidden. And I've been known to forget to brush my hair until I get to my routine reminders if my hairbrush isn't visible. Now, so my point is, don't get mad at a kid for putting their toothbrush in a cup on the counter. It's better than them not brushing their teeth. I guess now might be a good time to mention my current goal with decluttering and organizing. I want things to be as easy to put away as they are to put down. I've mentioned that we are a household of butterfly clutterbugs. This means that we are all visual organizers. We don't remember it if we don't see it. And we are also looking at macro categories because we're just going to drop and go. But we'll look for it when we need something. So in terms of the questions that I ask, we do tend to look for things when we need them, but not take time to put them away. That kind of drop and go thing. And Cass from Clutterbugs says these are not nice, clean categories, and many people do things differently in different areas and such, and I can see that. I have big bins of fabric that are hidden, for instance, and that would be more ladybug-ish. My son has lots of types of hobbies, so he has lots of categories of little tools on his desk, but they're all still visible, so that's probably more bee-like. The thing is, though, knowing these things about my family lets me pick and choose what we need to see and what we are going to go look for when we need it, so that an area with those items might be in storage bins with lids and hopefully a label, as opposed to a plastic tub without a lid. Our electronic storage shelf comes to mind with that. I've organized that probably a bit more like a Cricut, because we know that we'll go look for the things that we need when we need it. Now, I might choose a clear plastic storage tote instead of one of those like heavy-duty outdoor storage boxes with the lid flaps that lock, because lifting a lid from one side makes putting it away much easier when instead of like fighting with those flaps to get open and closed. Because just putting things down means that becomes my table for the heavier duty box. Maybe I have to work to declutter a bit more to make that container work, but I mentioned a few weeks ago when I cleaned up my toolbox storage that one problem I had was that the drawers were a bit of a problem. It's because you have to open the drawers and it's just easier to set it down on top. That's fine if I know to go back and clear the top occasionally, because there's kind of no way to get around some sort of drawers. Although, I suppose if I bought one of those heavy roll-around sorts of toolboxes that are $1,000, it would be a little bit easier. But not enough to make it worth the money. One thing I did when the kids were little that worked really well at the time was adding one of those like pantry type storage 3-tier shelf things that you'd put on a door into our like bathroom vanity door thing. And at the time we didn't have laundry in that room, so it wasn't in the way, but we could just open the door and then all of a sudden our toothbrushes were visible. So we could just drop and go, and the last person could just swing the door shut, and then they were out of sight again. So that was a cool option I found. It was like a countertop extension, but it was just easily tucked away. You guys have probably already seen me toss out the lids for I don't know how many plastic storage bins. We just don't use them. Like, unless we really need to stack something or keep something from, like, it's more of a long-term storage thing, the bins just come off. They just do. And we use the bottom part. But, like, I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 lids, and none of them matched any of the bottoms that I've got. My point is, know how you interact with your storage. If you know that, you can be intentional with how you store things, or maybe when choosing not to. I know that right now I have storage boxes in the low areas of my kitchen that are waiting for my kids to move out. But putting them in big boxes that are closed up and kind of hard to get into, I'm not digging stuff out instead of like doing the dishes, and they just kind of disappear while keeping me from putting more stuff in that space. And if I stash stuff in a box with a lid where we can't see that, well, then there's a good chance if we use it regularly, I'm going to wind up replacing it and wasting money because it essentially doesn't exist. It also frees up some spaces for odd things, like inside a canner is the perfect place for supplies for canning that you only use for that purpose. I don't need a jar lifter or a lid lifter in my tool turnabout that we use for most of our silverware. They can go in the canner. Likewise, I don't need a bunch of boxes with lids in an easy-to-grab location because they aren't going to be our ideal storage. They might be sentimental because of who made them or who used or whatever, but they can go out of the way. So I hope this was helpful for those of you, even if you aren't butterfly organizing styles, in terms of thinking about how you and your family do actually use your stuff. I will see you guys next week.